I am Warren Sprouse, host of the Bible Forum, meets every Sunday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, right here at thebibleforum.net. We get together every Sunday night to talk about the news, talk about life, talk about the kinds of things that are going on, and then look at them from a biblical perspective. Tonight I want to talk to you about Black Lives That Matter. We keep hearing this, it has become strident. But my contention is that the black folks who are screaming Black Lives Matter don't care about black folks. I've written a blog. You can go to my website, theviewfromzoar.com, and you can read it. It's entitled Do Black Lives Matter? There are people who are latching on to this. They do it with everything. They don't believe in the program. They don't care, but they get some cachet out of it. They have a personal agenda. I go back to 1966 with Huey Newton and Bobby Steele and the Black Panthers. They piggybacked on the civil rights movement of Martin Luther King. And immediately after a Texas president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who had, with other Southern Democrats, kept black folks under control for 100 years. This president, who saw the handwriting on the wall, in 1965 signed what is now being called, or was called then, the Great Society Bill. And this was the whole thing that started welfare and started to help all these people. But the Huey Newtons and the Bobby Steeles didn't believe that Martin Luther King had actually won anything. They thought he actually failed. They didn't believe in the nonviolent campaign that he waged. And they started their own organization, the Black Panthers. They switched over to violence to get attention. We're here to get power and to force the change. They preached a revolutionary war. They wanted equality in education, equality in housing, equality in employment, equality in civil rights. They had a 10-point plan. I have it listed right here. That there are people in power today who still want these same things proves my point. And the point is that the God of this world, the prince of the power of the air, is still motivating people to destruction. Black Lives Matter. In America, the poverty rate for blacks is 2.5 times higher than the poverty rate for white folks. 24% versus 10%. However, two-parent black families are rarely poor. And the statistics show that where a husband and a wife are working, a black husband and a black wife are working, the poverty rate is only 2%. And when you factor in things like occupational choices, educational attainment, age, geographic location, and comparative skills, the disparity between black and white goes away. Doesn't exist. It vanishes. So says economist Walter Williams, who's black. There are people today who know those statistics and they ignore them. What's going on? The Black Lives Matter campaign is very much like the Occupy Wall Street campaign or the Act Up campaign, all these other social movements that meant nothing. Police officers throughout America will tell you that a very small percentage of a community's population is responsible for the majority of the crime. This means that police officers are largely dealing with 10, maybe 15% of the population on a regular basis. They deal with you and me occasionally. They know these folks. They have a history with these folks. And each encounter with these folks creates some of the same feelings and some of the same exchanges as the last several encounters. It's human nature. In a Ferguson, Missouri, where the population is 70% black, this means that officers are encountering black folks almost 100% of the time, statistically. According to a report on the differences in crime rates by race, bias in the justice system, and interracial crime, 1999 by 2005 edition, blacks were found to be 7 times more likely than people of other races to commit murder. Black lives matter. 8 times more likely to commit robbery. 3 times more likely to use a gun. Twice as often they will use a knife. Of the nearly 777,000 violent interracial crimes committed every year involving blacks and whites, blacks, who represent 13% of the population, commit 85% of those crimes. 45% of the victims are white. When whites commit crimes, only 3% of their victims are black. Blacks are 2.25 times more likely to commit officially designated hate crimes against whites than the other way around. We don't have a white disparity in America. We have a black crime problem. Now add abortions. Every day in America, an average 3,315 human beings lose their lives in abortions. Upwards of 1,000 or more are black. 13% of the population represents 35% of the abortions. Why? Because of the breakdown of the family structure and the subsequent immorality that follows. Black lives matter, but they just don't matter to black folks. If they did, they would keep the family structure intact, and they would police their own. They would raise children to understand decency and honor and respect. They would stop killing their babies. Black lives matter to everyone but the black community at large. There are millions of blacks who do care. But most blacks hate them for it.